Hey everyone, and welcome to the Wednesday One Thing. I'm your host Hamza, and this is the first Wednesday One Thing of 2021. I'm joined by my co-host Maury Rubin. Maury, how's it going?
I'm doing really well, Hamza. How are you?
I am good as well. Maury, got a super interesting topic for ourselves today, and it's about everyone's favorite topic right now, which is the future, or rather, what the future might just look like. So, we're going to be discussing an article in Modern Retail about how, after record growth, DTC startups might have to fend off a 2021 slump. Now, Modern Retail is a lot more direct about this. They think that direct-to-consumer startups will have to fend one off, but really, what we're trying to see is the merits of that argument and whether direct-to-consumer companies, seed round and Series A round companies, really have that much to worry about, and what their key focuses should be. So something we've repeated many times since March 2020 is the fact that e-commerce has seen the kind of growth, sort of unprecedented growth, that was typically categorized over a 5 to 6 year window, but they saw that within 5 to 6 months, or well, within the whole calendar year, to be more specific. And direct-to-consumer startups were among the biggest beneficiaries of more people doing their online shopping in 2020. Whether that was buying sweatpants instead of, now that you didn't have to dress up for the office anymore, and it was direct-to-consumer groceries, or shopping online for pretty much anything that would not have required you to step out of your house and expose yourself to a potential contraction of the virus. Now, obviously, this has led to some questions about the numbers we actually saw posted within e-commerce in 2020, and really about whether those numbers were inflated, and how those numbers would then translate and carry over into 2021. So basically, there are two schools of thought posited around this, and Maury, would love to get your ideas on both of them. One is that, hey, last year we saw a super inflated growth trend. It was a once in a lifetime event that accelerated that e-commerce expansion. And then the second line of thought is, actually, we don't really have too much to worry about, because now that the floodgates of e-commerce have opened, we're not really ever going back. Every company out there, every brick and mortar store now also has a major e-commerce component. We've already discussed how middle market companies have done so much to digitalize their businesses in the age of the pandemic. And though there might be high churn rates, shopping has become an increasingly online experience. Maury, what side of the argument do you lie on? And what are some of your thoughts for what we might see in 2021?
Look, I think it's an interesting time, of course, and really what we've been focusing on talking about e-commerce is it's not just about shopping. It's not just about going online and making a purchase. There's so many things that go into that purchase decision. And I think what happened in 2020 is that every business decided to jump online, and they wanted to keep all the customers they had. So that was adequate for 2020. But as we roll into 2021, the brands that are going to have the sticking power are the ones that perhaps heeded our warnings in the past, whether that was beefing up their shipping and handling, whether that was amplifying their referral channels. That's what's really going to get people to stick with these brands. And I think what's going to happen in 2021 is that there's going to be a huge reckoning for some of these D2C brands that, you'll see people who are just did drop shipping, probably not going to be around. People who just jumped on the craze or really have to adapt might not be around. But those who had a really strong strategy are definitely going to be the ones to succeed in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely makes sense. I think another thing worth considering is that when we're talking about direct-to-consumer startups, these are startups. They're not like Coca-Cola or Boeing. They have a massive market of consumers that they haven't even touched, and that don't even know that business exists. So in terms of the possibilities for where their markets could go, I mean, there's so much more room for them to grow, and an increase in e-commerce has, if anything, made more consumers willing to buy online, and thereby only expanded their TAMs, their total addressable markets, even though these consumers may not even know about may not know about the existence of those companies yet. Now, something that Zach Normandine, who's CEO of beverage portfolio company Iris Nova, touched on, is that a lot of the purchases that went on in e-commerce in 2020 might have been through impulse buying, through via online ads, and that the churn is probably a lot higher right now than ever before because there's so many options on the market, and because that sort of spending trend is unlikely to continue. Maury, you touched on how shipping and brand awareness are so important to making sure these trends are kept in. What else, or rather, what do you think is going to make brands stand out now that almost everybody is comfortable with buying online, and total addressable markets for all brands, direct-to-consumer brands, have expanded so rapidly?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to what we've always talked about, which is that selling online is completely different than selling in store. You really have, this is your online presence through various different channels. That's your interaction with the customer. Whereas selling in retail, you have the physical store, people can touch, people can feel. And so what that means is online, you really have to optimize for all of these different touch points, such that the customer feels good about shopping with your brand, such that they want to have a repeat purchase, such that they want to introduce their friends into your brand. So what this means for churn is that companies who were doing that really well in 2020 should be able to keep doing that in 2021. Brands that are just this one time, you bought that impulse purchase, are probably going to have a much rougher time this go about.
100%. If for no other reason than the fact that Facebook and Google will ad prices on Facebook and Google will once again rise in certainly the second quarter of this year. I think because of how we saw such a sustained period of historically low ad prices through much of 2020, it means brands will have to prepare themselves for the fact that they can't entirely rely on Facebook and Google ads to drive the same amount of sales as they did last year. And those are revenue growth expectations that need to be accounted for, especially when a brand may be funded by investors such as VC boards, or might have already been through their seed or Series A round. Well, Maury, that pretty much concludes our conversation for today. Thanks as ever for your time, and thanks to everyone listening. We'll be back next week with yet another topic on the Wednesday One Thing. If you have any thoughts on what we've discussed, please leave them in the comments below, or reach out back to us. Pleasure speaking with you today, Maury.